Hi, this is Limey Joe and welcome to my beginner's guide of Railway Empire. So first of all, what I'd like to do is have a quick look at the options. You don't really need to mess with this stuff too much, but what I would suggest is that you switch contour lines on. That is really just so you can tell where the hills are more effectively. Otherwise it's quite difficult to tell where they are. So that's one thing I would change. I'm going to start this game in free mode. Maybe we should go for Kansas just because it's right in the middle. Realistic is where you basically have, well, you can see here from the description, trains must wait for each other and you will need parallel track switches and signals so trains won't just ghost their way through each other. We're going to choose the industrialist, I think. Okay. So first of all, you can have a look down your list of tasks. If you're playing the campaign, this list of tasks is much less, you've got less tasks. You might have 2 or 3 to work on at once, but because we're playing in free mode, it's giving us a whole bunch of tasks. So Kansas City, you can see here, if I just hover over Kansas City, then you can see that there's a demand, there's basically beer factory in Kansas City, and if we click on Kansas City we can go in closer and see a bit more information. So there's our beer factory owned by the computer basically. We can potentially buy that later on, but we don't have the money for it at the moment, I don't think. If I right click to bring back go back to the original screen, then I click on information, it will show you information about what the town is demanding in terms of goods. So monthly demand, this column, second one in, is the most useful one because it gives you an idea of how much the town is demanding of each product. The stock in the city is also useful sometimes because if you start supplying too much or they've got a lot of goods, then obviously you can oversupply a city. But those are the most useful parts of this. You can later on you get to buy more. You can actually buy a business. So once you get a population of 40,000, you can actually buy a business. If you just leave it, then the computer will populate that with some kind of business. So if you want a business in a town, keep an eye on when it hits the population level and quickly buy the business there, because otherwise the computer will buy it and then you'll have to buy it off the computer, and then if you want something different then you have to sell it, and which actually costs you money, so more like destroy it really, and then buy a new industry. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that if you want to get a business in a particular town. So the first thing we're going to want to do is probably find corn if we possibly can to transport to Kansas City. And there is some down here, you can see behind the forest. So initially, building construction up here. I'm going to build a small train station in Kansas. Now this is where you can see the contours on the map. So you can see there's a whole bunch of lumps in the forested area, and what we want to do is when we're running our track we want to steer around those lumps, because otherwise our track's going to cost us a fortune. The flatter the land is, obviously the less it's going to cost you to build the track. Holding down shift allows me to spin it. I think it just says down the bottom there. So I'm going to spin it around so I don't hit the lumps, and I'm going to put one there. Now going through the forest is also going to cost us a bit of money as well. Next, we're going to want to put a bit of track between the two. So click on the tracks up here, next in track construction, top right again. So we want to join onto the yellow dot, and we want to yank it over to our station there and click on that. So you can see it's hitting just the edge of the mountain there, and it's costing us 31,100 to make. If I just click on the track here, I can drag it over, you see, and we can actually save ourselves a few thousand by just dragging it away from the hill. So I'm going to come up to here to pay and build. Okay, so that's our first track. Now, what we are going to need is a supply tower on our track, because otherwise the engines will slow up, so they can fill up with water and the like. So I'm going to pop that down there. And then I'm going to click on new train. I'm going to add a locomotive. We've only got this Grasshopper at the moment, but once you've got through the game a little bit, you'll get a whole bunch of others. So I'm going to buy one of those. If you ever want to upgrade your train, you just click on this, click on the window here, and you can upgrade it. Personnel you can have if you want to. You can hire personnel, which makes your trains a bit more efficient in certain areas. But I'm not going to go into that initially. You can have a look at that yourselves. So, and then I come up here to buy locomotive. And I'm going to close. You can see we've got the Grasshopper here. I'm going to zoom back out again. And I'm going to set up a line from the Quorn to the city. And you can see up on the left hand side we have got the two locations. Now with this you can probably leave it on automatic. If it's a freight train, then I tend to fiddle with this sometimes. I might stick it to freight only. You know, realistically, if you're just going from a cornfield to a city, then you don't necessarily have to automatically. It's just going to do it, I think. But I usually put it on freight only anyway, just in case. And then click save and exit, and off we go. We've got a train. Here it is. There it is, all loaded up with corn, or loading up with corn, and it's away. If you want to actually ride with it, then you can go over here, click on ride along, and you can ride with the train, which is kind of cool. So that's our first line. Okay, so that's a very easy line, but let's say I wanted to put another train running backwards and forwards to the cornfield, and Railway Empire is geared towards you having multiple trains on a single run. So if I go back up here to track construction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a parallel line along the vast majority of this and then join them up. So you can see as I hover over it, that joins it onto the line I've already got, and that runs it completely parallel. So I'm going to click here, run it down here, not quite that far, there we go, about there. So that puts me a parallel line, and then click again. Then I'm going to come along and I'm going to make sure that it comes in and joins my line that I've got there already. And then I'm going to click, and then I'm going to come back up here to this one, and I'm just going to click and drag it so that it joins on at this end as well, like that. So we've got a nice parallel line. You notice this, it also goes past the supply depot thing, so that means that whichever line it's on, it will also have access to the supply depot. So once you've done that, you pay for it. Now, in order to make the trains not crash into each other, then we have to put in some signals. So if I go up to construction and I go to signals, so what you've got to do with the signals here is you've got to dedicate one line to going in one direction and one line to going in another direction, and that way the trains will cross. So get it so the little icon is green, press the shift button to change the direction, and you want the arrow going in the direction you want the line to go in, obviously. Hold the shift button down and click, and you can see that the line starts to go in a particular direction, and the trains will stop there at that point when another train is occupying this piece of line up here. And we'll come back down to here, and we'll change the direction by using the mouse scroller. Hold down the shift and click again, and you've got the line going in the other direction. So that's your basic passing point there. So now we could potentially add another train. If I add another locomotive, we'll just buy another one. There we go. There we go. So now we've got 2 trains on our line. If I zoom right out, we can see here's our first train heading on his way back, and here's our second train. And what they're going to do is they're going to pass on either side of each other. So there we go. Okay, let's do there's 2 different types of signals basically. There's the one that designates a line to go in a particular direction, and there's one that enables you to just stop a train from crashing into another train in essence. And so you use them in different situations. So for example, if I wanted to get apples here, apples aren't actually desirable at the moment. They're not, the town isn't big enough. Now let's say I want to connect it to Oklahoma. We're going to skirt around the hills, and I'm going to join it into the line that I've already got. Now you can see that in certain areas it's gone red because I've got a situation where it's just not going to go past a particular piece of terrain, for example, so I might have to just grab it and just mess around with it a bit in order to get it to go round that stuff. Don't know why I didn't like it initially, but it didn't, so there it is. And also because I can't go too close to the cornfields, I'm going to have to click and drag it away from the cornfields as well slightly. Now the problem is here, of course, is that we've already got 2 trains running on this particular piece of line here, and now we've got another train potentially coming in on this line here. So obviously we don't want them to crash. Once one's here up in the station area, we don't want this one here, from for example, to head on into the station as well. So what we've got to do is we've got to put a stop signal in. So if you go to construction again, signals, shift, scroll it with the mouse wheel to point it in the right direction, and just without pressing the shift button, just a quick left click, and one on this side, quick left click, and that will basically stop the engines from crashing into each other. If something's occupying the bit of track up near Kansas City, then the other ones will stop. So, and always remember that you've got to leave enough space for your full train to be able to stop and not getting in anything's way. If you're wanting to put more trains on this line, then you also use stop signals. So what you could do is, if you wanted to run 4 trains on this line instead of 2, the one going to the corn, what you could do is approximately in the middles, giving each train some space. You could put a signal here, for example, and there. So hopefully you've got enough space between this signal and this signal for the train to stop, and then if there was another one coming up behind, it would stop at this signal rather than crashing into the back of the first train, if you see what I mean. So now I could add potentially two more trains on this line probably, Oh yes, of course. This supply tower actually acts like a signal as well. So that's why my train shot straight past this signal here. Is because the supply tower is acting like a signal. So technically, I could probably move this one a little bit further down and actually have even more trains on there. So the other thing I wanted to cover was warehouses, because warehouses are super useful. So rather than having everything running directly into the middle of your city, what you can do is you can put a warehouse. So what you can do is you can put a warehouse within easy range of your city, in which case the trains will literally just go to the warehouse and the goods will be moved from the warehouse to the city without you having to do anything. Or you could stick a warehouse further away from the city, run a load of goods into your warehouse, and then a shuttle train that goes backwards and forwards to the city. So what I tend to try and do, if I can, is put the warehouse right next to the city, within range of the city. If I just plop it there. Let's say I want corn, because that's in demand. And now this train here, over by my corn farm. Ah, I've missed something. Cunningly, I have missed something. Okay, if you click on the warehouse, you've got to tell the warehouse what it wants. It was a good job I kept an eye on that train, otherwise it would have just been motoring backwards and forwards, not doing anything. So we want corn, so you have to tell it which goods the warehouse wants. So corn, and you can increase or decrease the amounts. If I just hit max, it'll go up to 99. Oh, and the other thing you're going to want is you're going to want to construct maintenance buildings. So you're going to want at least one maintenance building on any run. So Kansas, for example, I'm going to construct a maintenance building, and I'm also going to do it on the warehouse as well. We are burning through our cash. This train here, the one that goes to the warehouse, that will never show a profit. It will always show as if it's running at a loss, but you do get paid for the goods that go into the warehouse. It's just doesn't show up on the statistics when you click on the train. Just have a quick look at research. Over a period of time, obviously you get research which you can then spend. I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory. You just spend it as you go along. We'll have a quick look at the company tab as well. Mostly it's just information. If you skip over to competitors though, then you can buy shares in your competitors. Taking over a competitor is quite expensive. So for example, at the moment it would cost me 1.5 million in round figures to take over this. So the best thing is to just gradually buy shares in your competitors as you want, and then eventually you can take them over. And this is just information again. You've got your trains and how much money they're making. There's the one going to the warehouse making a loss, of course. Town list and their demands, as it were. Flow of goods. So at Kansas City is 100% happy with its corn deliveries. Sorry, it's wheat deliveries. Let's look at corn. It's only 4% happy with its corn deliveries. So you could put another train in on this line and deliver more corn, because they're not super happy with the amount of corn they're getting. They want more corn. Yeah, and I think that's everything you're going to need for getting going with Railway Empire. I hope you found this useful, and thanks for watching.